Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 182 based on novel. So let's start. Qin Mu and the dragon Qilin had dazed looks. They raised their heads to look at the behemoth beside them, speechless. The Daotai stood beside them like a mountain-sized mountain goat. Its front two limbs were incomparably strong and its back limbs were thick and short. The hair on its body had bronze patterns, going round and round. The behemoth had a human face, but its facial features were extremely weird. Its eyes were under its armpits, the place where its front limbs were connected to its chest. Its mouth was squarish and wide, filled with tiger's teeth. Its goat's horns protruded out like thorns, looking extremely fierce. Xing'an's chest had been made from Taotia's skin, which was used on the surface of the chest, and bones, which acted as the frame. One had to know that Qin Mu had two Daotai sacks, but the amount of skin used to make one was merely a foot in length and width. Yet the exterior of the huge chest used the skin of one whole Daotai. If one added the Daotai bones that were used to support the space inside, the chest could be said to be incomparably luxurious. Qin Mu's Daotai sack didn't transform, because the interior space wasn't connected to the outside world. On the other hand, the chest had transformed into Daotai, because its interior space had connected with the outside world. The transformation of the chest was slightly slower, probably, because its interior was a world by itself. To spat out everyone in its stomach, the chest had opened up, which resulted in its interior coming in contact with Fengdu. So the chest was also affected by the living realm of the dead. Qin Mu pulled away his gaze and hurriedly grabbed the Daotai sacks at his waist, thinking to himself, "My Daotai sacks need to be kept properly. I definitely cannot open them, otherwise, it won't be two Daotai sacks on my waist, but two Daotais strapped to me." Two mountain-sized Daotais strapped to his waist, and him stuck in the middle would definitely not be something pleasant. No matter if it was a squeeze or a tug, he would die incomparably miserably. The Daotai transformed from the chest raised its claws, still puzzled why it would change like that. However, it didn't think much about it and immediately took off to chase the people that were running toward Fengdu. It opened its mouth in delight, and tried to swallow them all. Even though it was affected by the living realm of the dead, and gained flesh and blood, its mind was still simpler. After all, it was a chest awakened by Qin Mu. The dead that were being chased by it were frightened out of their wits, to the point they had no more will to do anything. Daotai was one of the most famous evil creatures, and ate anything. It was never fussy, so it was no wonder they fled everywhere in fear. Qin Mu hesitated for a moment, and called out to the creature. The Daotai chest ran back, and looked reluctantly at the escapees. When it saw the dragon Qilin, it couldn't help jumping in joy again, and opened its strangely weird mouth. The dragon Qilin's hair stood on ends, and he immediately said, "You can't eat me. I treat you as a good brother, yet you want to eat me. Where's the justice?" Qin Mu consoled him. "Don't worry, it doesn't want to eat you. It just likes to collect some bones, hands, and legs. Spit me out, quickly spit me out. Damned chest, stupid chest, even eating me. Quickly spit me out." Finally, they came to the first divine city in Fengdu. At this place, Qin Mu saw all kinds of strange and weird people. Some of them had no heads, some huge holes in their chests, and some were missing arms or legs. However, there were also strong practitioners that had died normally, so their arms and legs were intact. There were many people in the first god city, and there were also strange life forms lingering in the air. They didn't look like the dead, but like spirits. Those are the scattered souls of strong practitioners. Their incomplete souls are lingering around here, but even in Fengdu they don't have their own corporeal bodies, bird-headed god Kai Xiu said. "Don't look at them, be careful of being possessed." Qin Mu hurriedly looked away. However, his curiosity was roused. Instead of looking at the incomplete souls that were lingering around, he examined other people. Soon, he discovered something strange. Other than the incomplete souls in the sky, there were actually people without corporeal bodies as well. There were many who didn't have an inch of it. Only their primordial spirits were left. Yet even so, those people were extremely strong. However, the forms of their primordial spirits were different from the human body. They usually were shaped as sacred creatures. The most common primordial spirit forms were the four great spirit bodies, them being vermilion bird god, black tortoise god, green dragon god, and white tiger god. However, there were even more primordial spirits that were something else, some fantastic oddities of every description. There were demon-faced gods with green faces and tusks, bull-headed gods with horns on their heads and fire wrapping around their bodies, gods with human heads and snake bodies, gods with 3 heads and 6 arms, and gods with all kinds of other forms. These people aren't incomplete souls, their primordial spirits are complete. Where are they from? Since they have primordial spirits and not corporeal bodies here, doesn't that mean that their corporeal bodies are still alive? Qin Mu suddenly took note of some crucial points. The corporeal bodies of those primordial spirits were still alive. He stared with his eyes wide open. There were numerous primordial spirits of all forms in the city. In just the period of time from when he had entered the city, he had already seen more than 200 of them. Didn't this mean that there were 200 and more gods still alive? Where were all of them hiding in his world? Not only that, more than 200 was just what he had seen when he entered the city. This meant that there were even more primordial spirits in the city. Besides, this city was only one god city of Fengdu. According to the where he had been the previous time he had come, there should be quite a few Fengdu cities. The last time he had seen the place, there seemed to be some 9-10 cities, and each one was very large. In that case, how many gods were still alive in the world? Why did these gods abandon their corporeal bodies and enter Fengdu? Where are their corporeal bodies at? Wait a minute. Qin Mu's mind was blown as qi and blood rushed into his brain, causing his ears to ring. There were many gods in his world. It was just that they had already become stone statues. They were the stone statues protecting the people in great ruins. Didn't this mean that they could revive anytime and become gods? This guess was shocking. All kinds of strange incidents in great ruins had troubled Qin Mu for a long time, but if his guess was correct, he could explain part of the strangeness. For example, the incident at Heavenly King Temple, in which the Heavenly King's stone statue had ridden the dragon Qilin to slay the Dragon King at night. For example, the incident of the white bat god statues reviving. And for example, when he and village chief roamed the night of great ruins, and saw the battle between gods and devils. Of course, there were still numerous unexplainable things. In the incident of slaying the Dragon King, the Heavenly King of Heavenly King Temple had gone on the order of founding emperor to slay the Dragon King that had rebelled. Where had this order of founding emperor come from? In the incident of white bat god statues, why was there a god that looked like an overlord body petrified in the depths of Ghost Valley? Why was there a passage to Yudu there? During the battle between the gods and devils, who was the one fighting with the gods of great ruins? On top of that, the primordial spirits of Fengdu's gods also couldn't explain the sight of the 5 worlds overlapping at the source of surging river. They also couldn't begin to explain how Qin Mu had returned to the ancient times. The strange sights in great ruins are just like the sea of fog. After pushing the fog away, there is more fog, making it hard to see the real thing, Qin Mu thought. They came to a very wide river in the city. There was a flying bridge that connected the 2 shores. Qin Mu went to the railing to look down, but he only saw dense fog churning instead of water. Once in a while, he could see slimy bodies slithering within it. Is this place connected to the sea of fog? He inquired. No. The other end of the dense fog is Yudu. Those things are life forms of Yudu, bird-headed god Kai Xiu said. Life forms of Yudu. Qin Mu's mind was muddle-headed. He muttered, Fengdu and Yudu are connected. Won't Yudu attack this place? God Kai Xiu didn't explain. He led them across the bridge of helplessness, and came to a sacred hall. It was called Hall of King Qin. When Qin Mu saw the 3 words on the horizontally inscribed board, he couldn't help being stunned. Why is this sacred hall called Hall of King Qin? Could the hall master's surname be Qin? He was puzzled, but the bird-headed god escorted them into the hall. At that moment, the hall was brightly lit, yet the light gave a feeling of a void. It was as if it wasn't truly fire. Its light was also hazy. On both sides of the hall, there were awe-inspiring and solemn sculptures of ghost gods. They were tall and had queer appearances, their body parts different from those of ordinary people. With sashes around their bodies, they held all kinds of weapons in their hands, like knives, spears, swords, halberds, shields, tokens, and even huge snakes. Qin Mu stopped in front of one sculpture to examine it, wanting to study the rune markings on its body. But suddenly, the eyeballs of the ghost god sculpture rolled and looked at him curiously. Qin Mu jumped in shock, and hurriedly took a step back. The eyeballs of the ghost god sculpture looked forward again then, making him think that he'd been seeing things. These are not sculptures, but real ghost gods. Qin Mu instantly became well-behaved and went after god Kai Xiu. In the main hall, a god cloaked in black sat upright and still, busy reading through memorials. God Kai Xiu bowed and said, King Yama, convicts Qin Mu, Xing'an, and shaman god Kuei have been captured. Awaiting your orders. The black-robed god placed the cinnabar brush in his hand down and raised his head. His face under the black robe couldn't be seen clearly. Only 2 dim lights could be seen. Xing'an's predestined lifespan is yet to end, and is not under the jurisdiction of my Fengdu, so let him go. God Kai Xiu was slightly stunned, but he still followed the orders and let Xing'an go. Xing'an, even though you have done much evil, Fengdu doesn't deal with people who are yet to die, King Yama said. You can leave. Xing'an was surprised but delighted. He sneered and said, so Fengdu is still a reasonable place. Very good, farewell. He was about to move, but the other 20 to 30 bodies on him weren't willing. They made him unable to take a step. Xing'an was astonished and angry. Those bodies were struggling, screaming and cursing, wanting to repay him with kind. How can Hall of King Qin tolerate such clamor? King Yama's voice turned unpleasant. Throw him out. Suddenly, 2 of the ghost god sculptures moved. The 2 ghost gods held military forks, with which they stabbed Xing'an and threw him out of the hall. Didn't you say you will let me leave? Why are you still keeping me in Fengdu? Xing'an asked angrily. God Kai Xiu sneered. How can you blame others if you can't walk out yourself? Ignorant. King Yama then looked at shaman god Kuei, who was not frightened at all. He sneered and said, my predestined lifespan isn't over as well. Old man Qin, shouldn't you let me go as well? Old man Qin. Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. King Yama's surname is also Qin. Who is he exactly? King Yama looked over indifferently. It isn't difficult for my Fengdu to take a life. You've done too much evil, and there are many people in Fengdu who have died in your hands. Their souls had scattered from your worship. There's nothing to pity about your death. Shaman god Kuei was fearless and chuckled. So what can you do to me? Your Fengdu was merely a territory seized by Yudu. Fengdu is merely a place where the survivors gather, constructed by imitating Yudu, trying in vain to overthrow heaven. Yudu paths, skills and divine arts that you manage are basically coarse toys that don't even catch my eyes. Compared the Yudu divine arts of the celestial heavens, you are still thousands of miles inferior. I have received a fief and title from heaven, so I'm not under Yudu's jurisdiction. I can die in anyone's hands, but I won't be injured by Yudu's paths and skills. You can't kill me. King Yama remained unmoved, and his voice was calm. The reason we captured you instead of killing you is to understand our opponent through you. Fetch 3 lives mirror and search his paths, skills, and divine arts, as well as his life experiences. Know thyself, know thy enemy. A ghost king in hall of King Qin walked down from the magic altar, and came to the front of shaman god Kuei. That ghost king had green skin, and had 2 pitifully small wings. There were horns on his head, and he had tusks that made his mouth seem abnormally large. It suddenly opened and instantly became wider than his body. That mouth was so huge that it could make one's hair stand up on ends. His mouth was like a door, in which light gathered to form a huge mirror, while shone on shaman god Kuei. The primordial spirit shrieked, and suddenly transformed into a wisp of green smoke that was absorbed into the mirror. The scenery inside the mirror started changing then. It actually showed the life of shaman god Kuei in reverse, going back from the moment god Kai Xiu had captured him. Time flowed back, continuously moving backward. All kinds of scenes in the mirror were displayed for a fleeting moment. Xing'an subduing shaman god Kuei, him getting schemed by Grandmaster, him using life and death book to worship billions of lives to death, killing enemy generals, all the way back to the battle of founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. The time in the mirror flowed back to ancient times. More and more of his experiences were shown without any reservation. Qin Mu's scalp started to crawl. If one was caught by this 3 lives mirror, who would still have secrets? In 3 lives mirror, the time flowed back, returning to more and more ancient days. Then, another world finally appeared. Shaman god Kuei, and countless gods and devils received orders to descend to the lower bound to crusade against founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. At the sight of it, even King Yama couldn't help becoming agitated and rose to take a closer look at 3 lives mirror. He wanted to see who was the one who had ordered the destruction of founding Emperor Celestial Heaven. The memories of shaman god Kuei were shown from his point of view, they were what his eyes had seen. His field of vision was wide, and it reflected the vast scenery of the true celestial heavens. Countless gods and devils vowed before their troops to join the expedition, planning to wipe out founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. This kind of sight roused the hearts yet filled them with fear. After all, there, even an existence like shaman god Kuei was merely an insignificant soldier among the numerous gods and devils of the true celestial heavens. The vision in the mirror gradually rose as shaman god Kuei looked at the true gods high above. The vast bodies of the majestic beings were limitless. The gods were like stars surrounding them. Shaman god Kuei looked at the mastermind, the so-called celestial emperor of the celestial heavens. King Yama couldn't suppress his excitement when shaman god Kuei focused on an incomparably majestic face. But the mirror suddenly distorted. Shaman god Kuei suddenly became blank, as if his memory had been wiped by an ineffable power. King Yama was astonished and pressed his hand against the mirror. Secrets of light source. On the mirror, the picture stabilized, but the next instant, a huge eye appeared within it. The mirror seemed to be able to swallow all light, causing shaman god Kuei's memory to continuously be erased. King Yama shouted. His long cape of darkness swirled, and a sword light flew out from it, slashing into the mirror. In 3 lives mirror, the time continued to flow back, showing shaman god Kuei's early experiences. By then, all memory regarding the true celestial heavens in his memory had all been wiped out, as if had never existed. King Yama put away his sword, and the sword light went into his cape, vanishing without a trace. There was an extremely powerful existence that sensed us borrowing shaman god Kuei's memory to take a look at him, so he erased shaman god Kuei's memory regarding him. His voice was forceful and sonorous as he said solemnly, "For him to sense shaman god Kuei recalling him, and send his magic power through time and space, is truly incomparably terrifying." In Hall of King Qin, a bunch of ghost kings shivered. Being able to sense when someone was just recalling them and be able to just erase that memory. This kind of divine art was simply inconceivable. Qin Mu was also astonished. 3 Lives mirror could show a person's entire life, and it was already unimaginable, like a fantasy story. Yet someone could actually detect other people trying to see them like that and erase the memory of the person who'd seen them. Such art was simply too terrifying to imagine. Since they were trying to pry into that true celestial heavens, could it be that the person who erased shaman god Kuei's memory is the celestial emperor of the true celestial heavens? Qin Mu secretly wondered. The remnants of shaman god Kuei's memory appeared in 3 Lives mirror. He was coming back from Yudu where he'd learned spells and divine arts. Numerous ghost kings were with him to observe everything in detail. Some of them held brush and ink, recording the divine arts, paths, and skills that shaman god Kuei had learned in Yudu. In shaman god Kuei's memory, the celestial heavens had sent out numerous divine arts practitioners with extraordinary aptitudes to enter Yudu to learn. Afterward, all these people had extraordinary attainments. This showed that the true celestial heavens was greatly related to Yudu. Qin Mu's heart shook, and he also wanted to go to learn the paths, skills, and divine arts of Yudu. All of them were very extraordinary. He had only learned Soul Guide of 9 Spectres sect, but it was incomplete. Even so, it was still extraordinary, able to summon the souls of Apothecary, Granny Sai, and the rest back. When shaman god Kuei worshipped others to death, what he relied on were also the paths, skills, and divine arts of Yudu. If Qin Mu could learn them, wouldn't he have another powerful method to fight? However, numerous ghost kings surrounded 3 Lives mirror until they were impenetrable. He was still a convict, so he couldn't squeeze past them. Suddenly, King Yama looked at him, and his gaze under the black robe flashed. Astonished, Qin Mu tested the waters. "King Yama, my predestined lifespan has not yet ended as well. What you have done is too huge, so don't think of running. You executed a Yudu spell, and seized a few of my people, violating the law of my Fengdu. Your evil is worse than that of Xing'an, and you still want to go. King Yama, how should he be dealt with?" God Kai Xiao asked. Violating the law of Fengdu, even a prince must be punished the same as the multitude of common people, so he indeed needs to be punished. Solving the divine arts, paths, and skills from shaman god Kuei's memory will require some time, so bring him away for now. I will punish him later by myself. God Kai Xiao was astonished. King Yama was going to punish him by himself. One had to know that even Xing'an and Shaman God King didn't were faced with personal punishment. Even though what Qin Mu had done seemed huge, it could be big or small. The rules of Fengdu were different from those of Yudu. They didn't dabble into the affairs of the world of the living. To living people, Fengdu was the same as Yudu, they both belonged to the netherworld. If the netherworld interfered with the world of the living, there would be unpredictable consequences. This was common sense. Fengdu would not interfere with the world of the living, and Yudu was the same. This was also the main reason why Shaman God Kuei said that they couldn't do anything to him. King Yama couldn't punish the primordial spirit of a person whose predestined lifespan had not ended. On top of that, Chinmu was still the human emperor, so God Kai Xiao had thought that King Yama would save the face of the previous human emperors, raising him high up before gently putting him down, concluding the entire incident with just a few scoldings. But from the looks of it now, it looked like he was ready to behead Qin Mu and punish him as an example to others. Follow me. God Kai Xiao escorted Qin Mu out. When they were outside the hall, he said softly, when King Yama comes later, just apologize. Don't worry, nothing will really happen to you, since you have someone above. Qin Mu relaxed and thought to himself, village chief's face is sure big. Come to say of it, he just died not long ago and is already a ghost hero. Outside the hall, Xing'an was like a huge ball filled with the heads and various other body parts. They rolled around, squabbled, and fought. He was being tortured miserably by the limbs on his body. Suddenly, Xing'an saw Qin Mu being escorted out from Hall of King Qin. He sneered and said, "Divine Physician Qin, looks like what you did is still worse than my crimes. I'm already released yet you are still being escorted. You have done too much evil, so you deserve what you have now." Qin Mu stopped and asked, "Xing'an, what's your predestined lifespan?" Xing'an was slightly stunned and sneered. "I'm a true god, so my lifespan has no end." "What predestined lifespan then?" Qin Mu shook his head. "What I'm asking is how much predestined lifespan do you still have in your original body? In Fengdu, you are only left with the lifespan of your original body. If the lifespan of your original body is up, you will be counted as dead." Xing'an's heart trembled violently. God Kai Xiu flapped his wings and said lazily, "Once the predestined lifespan is over, theirs is still the age of death. Predestined lifespan belongs to your corporeal body while the age of death belongs to your soul. Don't worry, once your predestined lifespan is up, you can stay here forever." Xing'an was terrified. He tried his best to leave Fengdu, but how would the people who had died under his hand let him off? Xing'an couldn't move a step, and instead got dragged toward the city by the hatred of the dead. "King Yama, you are not a man of your words," Xing'an said sternly. "You want to trap me here and reap my soul. He let you go, it's just you that can't leave." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "Senior brother Xing'an, you still don't understand King Yama's meaning. If you want to walk out of Fengdu, the only way is to throw away the body parts of others. Only by using your own body can you walk out. Otherwise, you will die of old age here." Xing'an's heart trembled violently. Making him throw away the divine body of other people was nothing less than denying what he had sought all his life. It would turn all his ideals and attempts to make his corporeal body and primordial spirit as strong as those of a true god useless. "Are you willing to die of old age here, or are you willing to risk your life?" Qin Mu asked. "Ever since you realized you had no hope in becoming god, you lost your fighting spirit, right? From then on, you are no longer the saint that appears once every 500 years, but just a pitiful bug, hoping to take other people's parts to improve oneself, yet you didn't know that all of it was for naught after you died. All your hard work, after coming here, is merely something you can see, but not something you can touch. It has no value and will instead become an obstruction. What's not yours will never be yours." Xing'an's Dao heart shook. Even when cult master Li Tianxing had used his Dao heart to strike his Dao heart, he hadn't been injured at all. Yet now, just a few words from Qin Mu had caused a flaw to appear in his Dao heart. What he thought was his was actually not his in this end. This was the greatest blow to him. "The path of God. I have already laid it out for you." Qin Mu stood in front of him as a skeleton, and looked very minute. However, he had a bearing that made Xing'an look up to him. He said indifferently, "If you give up on these body parts that don't belong to you and take back your own body, you can still become a god and walk your own path." "Chest, are there still any body parts in your stomach that haven't become human?" The Dao Tai behind him shut his mouth tightly, but the dragon Chelin pried it open with effort. He stretched his head in to look in the Taotia's stomach and said, "Cult master, there are indeed a few body parts inside. All body parts changed into humans in Fengdu except for yours. You have yet to die," Qin Mu said. "Chest, spit them out to return to him. Let him walk back with his own limbs." How could Dao Tai be willing to? The dragon Chilene's muffled voice came from its stomach. Cult Master, I've been eaten up again. Qin Mu was furious, punching and kicking the Dao Tai. Spit him out now. The Dao Tai was unmoved. After a moment though, it reluctantly spat the dragon Chilene and the body parts out. The dragon Chilene immediately hid behind Qin Mu. The huge chest terrified him. Qin Mu threw the body parts at Xing'an's face and said indifferently, "Release them, take back your own body and you will live. Otherwise, you die." Fatty dragon, chest, let's go, let him think it over. Xing'an was silent. The dozens of limbs were beating him frantically again, trying to tear him apart and drag him to death, yet he was still unable to make a decision. To deny the hard work of his whole life and to admit he was wrong, he still couldn't do it. Yet he also knew about torturing a man's heart rather than cutting up their body. Even though Qin Mu's cultivation and abilities were far from his, he had already defeated him in the Battle of Dao Hearts. Qin Mu had completely crushed his Dao heart, and he couldn't fight it back anymore. Cult Master, will Xing'an give up those divine body parts? The dragon Chilene asked as he turned back to look. Qin Mu shook his head and said, that would depend on his courage. If he returns to his corporeal body, he will only be able to live for a few more years, and it's impossible to say if he could become a god in such a short time. Yet if he doesn't change back, he will die of old age here. I also don't know. At that moment, a resounding laugh suddenly echoed. Kai Xiao, I've heard my grand disciple has been captured by you. Qin Mu looked toward the source of the sound and saw a tall and sturdy man, with a shirt draped over his shoulders. He seemed slightly lazy, and the shirt on his body was also slightly loose. Yet it gave him a certain kind of aura. So it's human Emperor Qi Kang, God Kai Xiao said. I'm acting on orders. Human Emperor Qin used a Yudu spell to snatch back people, and even King Yama was alarmed. The hearts of the ghosts in Fengdu are anxious that they will be summoned to Yudu and sink there eternally. Because of that, King Yama wants to take him down. It's not my fault. Human Emperor Qi Kang took hold of the shirt draped over his shoulders and smiled. I know that you are acting on orders, so I won't create trouble for you. I will be bringing Human Emperor Qin away. Just drop King Yama a note. God Kai Xiao shook his head and said, that will not do. King Yama still wants to punish him alone later, so I can't let you take him away. At this moment, an old voice suddenly rang out. Kai Xiao, I heard my disciple's grand disciple has been captured by you. God Kai Xiao's expression changed slightly when he saw an elder with white hair walking over. It was none other than the master of Human Emperor Qi Kang. He immediately explained, so it's Human Emperor Yi Shan. I can't make a decision regarding Human Emperor Qin's matter, since it's King Yama that wants to punish him for creating a disturbance in Fengdu. I can't call the shots. Human Emperor Yi Shan, please don't blame me. I didn't see how big the matter was. The white-haired elder had a short stature, and his snow-white beard flew upwards from both sides. His voice was like a great bell as he laughed. I know you can't make the decision, so I'm not letting you make the decision. I'm the one making the decision. I'll be bringing Human Emperor Qin away. You can't. God Kai Xiao became anxious and said, King Yama wants to punish him personally. Human Emperor Yi Shan, you can't make the decision. Kai Xiao, I've heard my grand disciple's grand disciple has been captured by you. Another voice came over, and God Kai Xiao couldn't help crying out internally for help. He saw a woman in a blue dress carrying a small bamboo basket walking over. He immediately said, so it's Human Emperor Lan Po. About this. Kai Xiao, I've heard my grand disciple's disciple has been captured by you. Kai Xiao, I've heard my grand disciple. Kai Xiao. More and more people surrounded God Kai Xiu, who was about to explode. He thought to himself, could I have poked a hornet's nest? These human emperors of Hall of Human Emperors are all hornets, right? You usually don't see them around, but once you poke one, the whole nest comes flying out. He felt he couldn't provoke them, and when more and more damned human emperors came over, he could only say, everyone, you are all reputable figures, so why must you force me? Please don't give me trouble. I can pass human Emperor Qin to you guys first, but he cannot leave Fengdu. I have to hand him over to King Mu. Don't worry, we won't make you trouble, everyone said noisily. Chinmu looked around in a daze and stuttered, God Kai Xiu, you said I had people above. That's right. Kai Xiu tried his best to squeeze out from the crowd while saying angrily, the human emperors of your Hall of Human Emperors are all bullies and ruffians, and they are a force in my Fengdu that cannot be provoked. One poke and the entire hornet's nest will come out. I'll come back for you later. He squeezed out of the crowd and flapped his wings away. Chinmu looked at the human emperors in the surroundings, slightly at a loss. Everyone was smiling as they examined him. Among them, there were men and women, young and old, tall and short, fat and skinny, well-groomed ones, fierce-looking ones, courageous and strong ones, and also weak-looking ones. Chinmu looked toward the crowd, but village chief couldn't be seen. He immediately coughed and greeted, young and superficial student Qin Mu, the current human emperor, pays his respects to Grandmaster, Great-Grandmaster, Great-Great-Grandmaster, Great-Great-Great-Grandmaster. There's no need for such formalities. Everyone flooded forward and surrounded him, this little skeleton, in the center, rattling his bones until they were almost falling apart. They gathered around him and walked him toward the city with smiles. It's rare to have a living coming to find us, so let's have a nice gathering and liven things up. You haven't been burning paper money for us. If it wasn't for that little brat with the surname Su dying and coming to Fengdu, we would have thought that Hall of Human Emperors has been cut short. Why didn't you sweep our tombs? If you had gone, we would have known that we have a successor. We even left some treasures for you in Hall of Human Emperors. There were too many questions, so Chinmu could only reply honestly. Until now, I have yet to visit the Hall of Human Emperors. Village chief also didn't tell me where it is. Human Emperor Qi Keng couldn't help becoming furious. What was that little brat doing? To actually not bring you to Hall of Human Emperors. This scoundrel, when he comes back, I'll definitely teach him a lesson. Human Emperor Yi Shan gave a fierce kick to Human Emperor Qi Kang's buttocks, and blew his beard while giving him a stare before shouting, how do you teach your disciple? Beating your disciple is never the way to teach a good disciple. It's because of teachings from people like you that Human Emperor Qin didn't sweep our tombs. After this kick from Human Emperor Yi Shan, his head was immediately punched by Human Emperor Lan Po, and he cradled it in pain. Human Emperor Lan Po said furiously, Yi Shan, did I teach you like this? How dare you even have the face to say that to Qi Kang? How did you teach your disciple? Lan Po, such a violent girl, throwing my face. Kong Xian, how dare you beat my grand disciple? You are tired of living. This video will end here.